Hello, everyone, and welcome to NetApp On Air. I am your host, Nick Howell, and thank you for joining us today right here on YouTube, Twitch, and a shout out to everybody watching over in our Discord community. Are you in Discord yet? You're not? Why not? You should be. Head over to netappdiscord.com. Come join the community. It's where all of us hang out. We've got over 100 members of technical support and executive staff that monitor and answer questions and just there to listen for general feedback. So make sure you come and join us. That is the best place to interact with us. We're going to be talking about some of that kind of stuff today as well. I'm very excited to bring my guest on, but before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure you subscribe here to the YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us over on Twitch. And like I said, make sure you get over in the Discord community because that is the place to be. Now, my guest today, or my topic today that we're going to be talking about is something that I believe has not gotten enough attention. It was a lot of what happened was mostly got overshadowed because it happened during the pandemic in 2020. But we acquired a company in 2020 called Spot. And it was one of those that I came into not really understanding initially. But once I got my head around it, I went, oh man, that is going to be a game changer. So over the last couple of years, there have been other tuck-in kind of acquisitions to enhance the portfolio even more. And today we're going to be doing a full kind of brief overview of the entire portfolio. And in following episodes, we're going to take deeper dives on each of the individual components of it. So today, my guest today is fairly new to the company. We met back at reInvent, AWS reInvent back in December. He had just been here a couple of months, I believe, at that point. But I want to bring him on now. Welcome, Mr. Shon Harris. Shon, how you doing, sir?
Doing well, Nick. Thanks. How are you?
I am fantastic. I tweaked my back yesterday. Don't get old, kids.
Yeah.
You end up with back pain, back problems. But no, everything's great. We got the monoliths are running back there. The blinky lights are going. I was cabling all of my stuff yesterday and labeling all of my port profiles like a good engineer. So I've been having a blast building that out, but eventually the long-term goal is to have that running in the cloud so I go over there and pull the power cords out of the back of it. But we're probably a year away from that whole journey. How about you, sir? How's things on your end?
Things are great. Things are I feel like I'm finally hitting my stride after 9 months at NetApp and working for Spot. Really excited about some of the changes that are coming down the pipe, and personally, I'm just ready for summer. I'm tired of the snow. I live in Utah and I've got 800 inches of snow up in the mountains, and I'm just waiting for it all to melt so I can get out and go do things that don't involve sitting in my house.
Well, as a resident of Las Vegas, I'm very happy about all of the snow because that's something we've had a shortage of for a decade or more.
And we got it all at one, yeah. A 40-year snow event would have been nice, but we didn't have to do it all in 6 months. We could have spread it out over a couple of years.
Between what's going on in Utah and the Rockies and what's going on in California, in Reno and Tahoe, just 600 inches of snow you got 800. That's what that's going to do for Lake Powell. What that's going to do for all of for the whole Colorado River Basin is going to be massive over the next decade. So. Yep. Appreciative of that, especially for those of us that reside in the Southwest. I think that's going to be we're very just Arizona. Please stop building golf courses. Okay, just knock it off. All right, we need the water. All right, so back to the topic at hand. Spot. Talk to me about how you were introduced. So first of all, before we get into that, what's your background? How did you before we get into like Spot? How did you find your way into the position that you're in, sort of running DevRel stuff community at Spot?
Well, about 20 years ago, I applied for a job at HP and nobody checked my ID, and I started my tech career doing inbound support at HP, doing LaserJet support.
Gotcha.
That turned into finding a love of infrastructure and networking. I knew that I wanted to work in tech. Thought I wanted to do computer science, thought I wanted to be a programmer, and then I found ops and IT and fell in love with it. And so I wanted to be IT guy. Worked my way up. I've been director of IT at a couple different companies. I've worked in healthcare, higher ed, all over. And in about 2015, I realized, this cloud thing is real. I should probably know more about it, and decided I'm going to start learning and start consuming everything I can in the cloud. And so I started doing that, and I got into DevOps, and it was great. And I love playing with storage. I love playing with hardware. I love playing with the cloud environments, but I hated being on call. I hated the late night deploys. I hated the late night, oh crap, something broke. We need to have an all hands at 2 a.m. worldwide because something went wrong. And so a buddy of mine who was with Spot at the time called me up and said, I need somebody who can talk the talk, walk the walk, and do it where you can work in the sales org and help our sellers sell and help evangelize the technical aspect of our product. And I said, okay, what's your product? And he said, selling off excess capacity from the cloud providers to customers. And I looked at him and I said, you're drunk. That's not a good story. Call me back when you have something real. And he called me back 6 months later and he's like, I got to really look at Spot, and I want you to look at DevRel. And I thought I couldn't do it. And it turns out I'm actually pretty good at talking and holding a conversation. And so I said, I'm going to try it. What's the worst that could happen going into an economic downturn that nobody saw? And I said, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And it's actually a lot of fun because I get to play on the best sides of tech. I get to play with the tech. I get to keep being a practitioner without being a practitioner, and being able to explore and evangelize some cool technology that I didn't think was possible. But when I play with it now, I can totally see the future of how it's going to change cloud ops. And I get to evangelize, and I get paid to do stuff like this and sit on podcasts and do live streams and play on Twitter and help evangelize the Spot message about what our portfolio does.
Yes. Well, welcome to the world of evangelism.
It's great.
It's been a bumpy ride for me personally over the last decade. But there's some, if you know, you know.
Yep.
But where it's at today is also an interesting place. So we've seen the rise of DevRel, and we've had the conversations of DevRel versus dev advocacy and all of that kind of stuff. Like, we don't need to go in and boil that ocean, but I think there has definitely been an uptick in that sort of adoption. And I feel like the cloud has driven that. I feel like the cloud, with everything being run as code now, has allowed what were developers locked in a cubicle with laptops to now come out and take on some of this evangelism work that has typically been reserved to on-prem infrastructure folks. And I've been emphatic about that. I'm absolutely obsessed with the DevRel community and being able to see more people out there talking about these kinds of things. So as someone who has been doing that stuff for a long, who started my blog in the mid 2000s. So it's been a minute. Right? Well, and we've needed some fresh blood. The community has needed a fresh infusion of that stuff. So I see DevRel and dev advocacy picking up that mantle where infrastructure kind of let it die back there on the VMware vine.
Well, and I look at where my career has progressed, because I started out slinging NetApp hardware into racks and playing with Fiber Channel and iSCSI and figuring all that out. Right? Oh yeah, yeah. See, don't die on me. NAS for life. But I can see this is the extension of community that we had on the support forums back in the early 2000s, right? This is the natural evolution. Now you've got practitioners who have come in and have some experience in the field to come in and say, hey, let's talk about doing something differently. Let's talk about how our tools work. And I think the reason that DevRel has really taken off is because there are so many tools in the DevOps space and the DevOps ideology and platform engineering. You have to be able to differentiate your product, and having somebody who can dynamically talk to practitioners is the only way to get that message out, because your CTO doesn't care about what your Kubernetes automation tool is doing. They care about how much it's costing. And if you can sell the developer, you can sell the CTO from a different selling motion that I don't think we realized before.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And to your point, like have we crossed 600 products on the CNCF landscape? I think we have at this point. A couple of years ago, it was a little over 550, something like that. But 600 products that all need their own, that are categorized in different ways, that are leveraged in different ways, that are deployed in different ways. Absolutely, you're going to need some kind of community to support that kind of effort and that kind of landscape. So I'm very excited to see DevRel take off and get to where it is. How are you seeing that? So coming into a vendor, a manufacturer like NetApp with Spot, how are you seeing DevRel help with the adoption efforts of Spot?
I think it helps us tell the story a little bit differently and a little bit more nuanced in a way that, sure, you can come in and automate all your cloud. And like I said before, the selling motion of enterprise storage has really been, you go to a high level purchaser, they kind of push the mandate down. We're going with NetApp. We're ripping out all of our other storage. Go. Right here are all the crates with DevOps and C and cloud native tooling. I can just plug it in, and if I don't like it, I rip it out. So you've got to find a way to keep that stickiness. So talking to the developers and getting them to buy into your tools is really where the change has been, because that's changed the whole buying motion to where now I just put it on my corporate card and it's an expense. It's not a capital investment like a NetApp all flash array is, right? So it's a different way to procure. And it's a different message that you have to take because you have to sell it from the bottom up instead of from the top down. And I think but letting practitioners get their hands on, like we had the demo booths at our booth at reInvent, letting practitioners come by our booth and showing them how easy it is and letting them drive the clicks takes that message back. And we see a lot of engagement from customers who come back and say, hey, I showed this to my boss, or my employee showed this to me and now I want to talk about it. And then they see the whole breadth and width of what has become the Spot platform inside of NetApp. And they're like, holy crap, you can do all of this? Yeah. From one pane of glass? Yep. And then I think that as the cloud offerings from NetApp evolve, we will truly become the one spot for cloud ops, because a 30-year-old company that finally gets the cloud is going to make some waves as to what their product portfolio does. And so I think it's really re-envisioned how not only NetApp as a manufacturer and a brand approach marketing to these people, but I think it's also changed how the customers come to us and how we acquire those revenue generations.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as someone who's still under a year in with the company, something I'll share with you is that one of the biggest hurdles that we deal with constantly is walking into a customer. Oh, you're from NetApp? The infrastructure team sits over there. Yeah, but I want to talk to you about that. And you get shoved out. So that's been one of the biggest hurdles of especially from an evangelism perspective of trying to get the word out there that no, we don't just do storage arrays anymore. We're actually doing some compute stuff and cloud stuff. You want to pay attention to this,
all right? And I think that's why they brought me as a former practitioner in, right? Because you can go and find somebody who's good at the marketing side and creating that message, but you're still going to run into that same problem. But where I can go to a DevOps meetup group and get my peers to start looking at our tools, and then help with that lead generation from that aspect, you're exactly right. People will change the way that they view NetApp. And I have always said that NetApp, one of NetApp's biggest things is that we've been around for 30 years, right? It's like farmers insurance. We know a lot because we've seen a lot. And I think that that's only going to evolve as we go farther into the cloud. Yeah, and we unify that messaging.
I said in the statement, what you guys are about to see, if you've never heard of Spot or never seen Spot before, back in 2020, when we were closing the acquisition, I made the statement, I think internally, that I think that Spot could be arguably one of the biggest acquisitions in the history of NetApp. I still stand by that today. I think there is a path where this completely changes how, and if I look at the way things are going with Blue XP and how we're taking storage to the cloud in that way, and sort of the mind meld that's starting to happen, that you're starting to see transform, where with one underlying API layer, you can kind of see where this starts to go. So what you're about to see from Shon today in a live demo environment is a look at Spot. And what I got to see, even the early stages of it 3 years ago, before the acquisition, how far it has come in 3 years, some of the acquisitions that have been made to fill some gaps along the way, it is absolutely transformational. And it's just really think about it from a deployment of workloads perspective. Don't think about pieces of gear. Think about workloads, stacks, and how those things can be made portable and moved around. So, Shon, the floor is yours, sir. I'm going to bring your screen share up here, and we will get this party started. So Perfect. Where do you typically start with customers when you're explaining what Spot is to them?
So one of the things I always start out with is the key tenet of modern platform engineering needs to be optimized for the performance, not optimizing for the cost. Although cost is a big part of it, optimizing for performance is going to make you more money in the long run than trying to pinch pennies and save money in the cloud. and we're going to talk about cost as we go forward. But what does Spot really do? And I've got a pop-up ad that I thought I saw. Spot sits in between your cloud provider, your web applications, your cloud native applications, and your data applications. And we help optimize your workload to ensure that you're using the most optimized resources for the best price in the best environments that you can to ensure the best performance of your workloads. So Spot is a full portfolio of products. It is not just one product. It's not Spot and you're done. It is a portfolio of products that covers FinOps, containers, infrastructure, and that desktop one's going to be removed as we go forward. But I want everybody to see kind of what we're looking at. So FinOps is your financial management. It's how you spend, how you save money, how you manage your commitments within your cloud environment. Containers.
Give us a couple control pluses there to zoom in on that for me.
Okay.
So we can see that a little bit better. There you go. Beautiful.
Yeah. So FinOps is managing your cloud spend. It's managing your environment for cost controls, for savings plans, for RIs. It's analyzing your cloud constantly, and it's giving you reporting, real-time feedback reporting that you can use. Containers, we have a multitude of tools for your containers that we're going to go into, and then your infrastructure with Elastigroup and Spot Security. So let's look at the console. I'm going to go to my main dashboard through the Spot console. I've saved us the time of logging in. You start by linking your account. Once you link your account, we start ingesting in your data and we start giving you ideas on how you can optimize. And so the first thing that you see on this is how much money can you save? Well, you can save a lot of money because this is a demo environment and we've got some numbers that are displaying here. But if I could go to my boss and say, I can save us $15,000 a month and take
that would certainly perk up the year,
right? And that's the first thing you're going to see is, holy crap, I can save $15,000. What am I doing wrong?
By the way, I want to throw this out there, and you can embellish however you want. Mm-hmm. This is free, guys. Mm-hmm. You can go and put in you can link your accounts and tokens from your cloud provider accounts, and just get an assessment for free. This is the bill. The meter isn't running yet. And one of the things that you'll learn that I'm going to spoil the punchline for Shon, because I want to make sure everybody pays attention to this. You don't get a bill until you save money. I want to let that breathe for a second, because that is one of the most foundational parts of Spot that is really, that one will catch you off guard. So if you don't save money, you'll see no invoice. Like that right there. So that's how much these kind of analytics are important, because it's kind of putting your money where your mouth is, right?
Yep. And that's exactly it. And the way that you pay for Spot, so we can talk about that real quick, is the delta between what you spend, so this estimated monthly missed savings, and the current estimated cost of what it would cost to run on demand. So if I can save $15,000, I'm only paying on the delta between what I've saved and what it would cost me to run on demand. So it's
a small percentage of that.
A small percentage, and it's all flexible, and that's just how it works. So let's look at the products one by one. We'll start with Elastigroup. Elastigroup is our VM infrastructure tool. You can see here we're running 855 Spot instances right now, and that's 118,000 hours. I'm saving 64% of my spend right now because I'm running those Spot instances and I'm running 13 on-demands. That's how much money I'm saving just right off the top. And we have different stuff right within that, and we can go back and we can look over the average.
So translate that. Okay. What is actually happening behind the scenes? How is this different than me going to AWS and creating a new EC2 instance?
That's a great question. So let's look at this one. Prod Spot by NetApp World, right? So we can see here that we're running over the last 7 days.
Live demos.
Yeah, live demos. So you can see here we've replaced a bunch of instances and we're running no on-demands. We're running all Spot. And here now we've got some on-demands running, some Spots. But you can see those numbers constantly change, because what we're doing is we're constantly watching your environment, and we're going in and saying, how can we save you money? And we take 8 years of data that we have and have turned it into this fancy AI model that goes in and can predict what the spot marketplace is doing on a per region and per availability zone availability, right? So we go in and we look at each region, and then we look at the AZs in each region and say, what is the spot marketplace going to do in this environment? And we give it a score. And you can go in and you can, in your settings, go in and define and get an idea of what the heat map is. And let's see if I can find this here. Edit configuration. Predictive rebalancing. And we can go in and we can actually say, what's the capacity of our workload? Do I want to fail over to on-demand of no spot instances, or do I want to use commitments? And so the spot tool can go in and help keep your commitments. And we're going to go into that when we go into eco, but we can help you buy and even sell off your commitments. So you can buy reserved instances through the spot console and you can sell them off. So say you're a company that needs to offload a bunch of capacity because maybe a global pandemic hits and you don't have people using your service. But there's a game company, because everybody's at home, that needs that extra compute. You can sell directly to them through the spot console and offload that excess capacity to whoever needs it and get it back in, right? And so you're saving money by being able to sell off that capacity.
On the flip side of that, maybe you're a retailer that is only busy on one day of the year in the U.S. on Black Friday, and you need a truckload of compute, but only for about 24 hours. You could also just provision it that way.
And here's our scoring model, right? So our scoring model, it's not letting me do some stuff right now, but this is where we go and we assign that score. So we can see that the C4X large instances in AWS have a score of 71, which is yellow, but a 91. So there are going to be more instances available in US East 1A than there are in US East 1B. But if I want the C3s, I can't run those in this AZ. So it automatically predicts where the market's going to go, what the availability inventory is going to be, and then what the lifetime of that's going to be, so that you can make sure that you can set your minimum instance lifetime, and we go out and find those instances that will meet those requirements. Most customers can go in and say, I need a 3-hour lifetime and finish all their work, but there are some people who want to keep running on it. And so theoretically, you could run your production workloads on excess capacity with what is in our stack.
Damn.
All because you've gone in, and we can look at this right here, where if I go to instances, there we go. You can see here that they're spot and that they're fulfilled. And we can go in and we can say, let's look at that's not where I wanted to go. But you can actually go into the AWS console, but you can actually see what's spot, what's not.
Yep.
And then if I go lifecycle, well, these are all going to be spot right now because we're only running spot. But you can see here it's running in a bunch of different regions too. AP Northeast, right? We're running worldwide on this excess
different
capacity.
Availability zones,
Right. And how does excess capacity work? Excess capacity is just AWS trying to predict their own usage and spinning up so that they have enough to cover it. Right. And so we're going in and we're using AWS's resources that they're spinning up so that they have capacity and giving it to you at a significant discount. Because all these are going to be running anyway. AWS is just selling them off because they don't have the need right that second for all this infrastructure that they need to have ready, because people want to be able to have an instant spin up in 30 to 40 seconds. They don't want to wait.
Where does all this excess? So I think this is a fun little history nugget that we can throw out at folks that may not be aware. So AWS, or Amazon Web Services, came from excess capacity that the Amazon.com bookstore of the mid-2000s was not using. So they were trying to figure out a way how to leverage some of that excess compute that was just sitting out there, oversubscribed, not really being underutilized, right? And so that was the birth of AWS. Here we are 15 something, so almost 20 years later, it feels like. And now they've figured out a way to, I don't want to call it auction off, but there is a separate marketplace for reserved RIs, reserved instances, and spot instances to be able to do this. And what Spot has figured out how to do is go in and harness that marketplace, use some predictive ML, and some algorithmic predictability stuff around what your environment and what your workloads are actually going to draw. And then they'll make recommendations and automate the movement of all of your workloads around. So that just where it comes from, the early beginnings of Amazon.com and Bezos going, I've got extra stuff. How can I sell it? How can I let other people use it? Maybe is a better way to say that.
Well, and you make a good point. Yeah, it was because of the excess capacity that Amazon had for their compute on the bookstore. But they also need to have it just running in the background to meet the requirements of the users, right? And so if they're not using it, the thing that makes it very useful is for staging environments, for dev environments, where you want to just be able to have ephemeral instances. But the way that we've built it out allows you to really take constant snapshots and be able to run your production workloads on that spot instance and save a ton of money.
Yeah. Did we lose your... There we go. All right, so we're looking at Elastigroup right now. As far as instances go, how do we differentiate between the different... What I really want to cover today is, like, one, the introduction that we've done, but let's differentiate between... Because these have some cool hipster names to them, Eco and Elastigroup and Ocean and all that stuff. Like, how do people translate or categorize those into what they can make use of? Let's do a full introduction.
Okay, so Elastigroup. Let's start at the top. Elastigroup is for your elastic infrastructure, your EC2, your load balancers, your elastic IPs, anything that's elastic compute related that you would see on the EC2 tab pretty much lives in the Elastigroup service, right? It's for your traditional Linux and Windows VMs. You're able to go in and basically provision your instances from our pane of glass and control your application from our pane of glass and let us use our cool tech behind the scenes to come through and help optimize your workloads for performance and for cost as considerations. Eco is our FinOps tool. Eco economics, right? You go into Eco, it shows you the state of your current environment at the top from all of your different sub-accounts that you may have in an AWS organization. And to be clear, we work in all three scalars. We work in GCP, we work in the Google Cloud, we work in Azure, when we work in AWS. And so Eco allows you to get a holistic view of your entire cloud spend and show you where you're spending, right? What am I spending on my standard reservations? Boom, right there. What's convertible? Right there. Boom. Where are my savings plans? I don't have any savings plans showing right now, but you can really get an idea of what your whole cloud commitment is costing you and what it looks like over time. And then
so
what your coverage
I really like that graph right there, because it starts to show you that you're kind of leveling off your reservations a little bit there. And is this, maybe this is a thing where you're swapping, you're going from more reserved instances or RIs into more spot instances. You're figuring out how to be more agile, because once you get in here, your configuration in the span of a year will completely change. Like as you grow and evolve and mature into operating this way, it's a refactoring of your operations in a way. Just like you're refactoring your apps to run in more microservice-based cloud architectures, you're also going to refactor your day-to-day operations as an IT institution to be able to do some of this kind of stuff. It's fascinating to watch some of this evolve over time for certain customers.
Right. And that's exactly it, because you get that real coverage over time. And I think that that's the one thing that we miss a lot of the time when we're talking about the economics of the cloud, right? We hear a lot of people talk about, man, it's so expensive. It's so this, it's so that. But if you figure out and you just spend some time coming up with a strategy that works for you and optimizing for the performance, the cost comes in over time. Because you can see here, if we look at this peak, our on-demand equivalent would have been $838,890.
Jesus.
But my actual spend was $200,000 off of that. What can I do with that $200,000? Especially going into economic headwinds like we see right now. Can I hire another engineer? Can I focus on another project? $200,000 is a lot of money to go in over time. And then you look and say, what's my coverage like? Well, I've got 78% of my cloud environment is covered under some kind of financial commitment to a cloud provider. That's a lot of coverage. And we've seen customers that get up to 99% coverage, right? Between our tools, they can get up to 99% coverage and they can save 75 to 80%. Those are big numbers, but not unrealistic. And we see them quite often. So when we go, and now we go into Ocean. Ocean is our containerization optimization tool, which I think is really what our secret sauce is, if you will.
Ocean's my favorite.
And
if I have a particular one. Oof.
Why is it your favorite? What about it appeals to you?
It's a Palpatine unlimitless power. It feels like with the combined with Kubernetes and the scalability of the clouds, I have now torn down the walls of any sort of capacity requirements that I might have ever had on-prem. The integrations directly with the cloud, the EKS, for example, being able to manage that. And at the end of the day, what we're really doing is putting a sidecar into your Kubernetes cluster. Like there's certainly more technical depth to it than that, but that's the basics of it. What that is doing is similar to the things that Elastigroup Group is doing. It's just doing it to your worker nodes. And it's doing it within the cluster. So it's building logic around the workloads that you are actually operating, not just the cluster itself. So it's capturing all that information. It's analyzing the number of nodes that you have. Do you need burst capacity in your cluster for a particular workload? Cool. We'll go grab a spot instance. Are you actually going to be running this cluster in production long term? Cool. We'll go help you book 3-year commits on some RIs. What? That's why. And then you add on all of the other auxiliary pieces that are on top of Ocean that we haven't mentioned yet. That's why Ocean's my favorite. It's also, it feels the most fluid from a Kubernetes experience. Like if you've ever used the Kubernetes native dashboard, it's awful. Even the cloud provider ones are just not intuitive. But looking at this, I can go, not only gives me the financials of it, it also gives me the operational side of it as well. It's my favorite.
No,
it's what I wax poetic about constantly.
And that's the coolest part, right? Because people don't understand when they provision Kubernetes cluster, one of the considerations you have to have is how do you account for the resources? How do you account for your Kubernetes getting the maximum usage out of your cluster for the best amount of money? How do you use as much processor and as much memory as you can? Well, the answer is Ocean, right?
Without oversubscribing it.
Without oversubscribing,
right?
And so let's look at these charts right here because we're going to start talking about Ocean. Ocean is the easy button for your Kubernetes cluster to manage that. We're in this cluster right now. We are using 81% of the CPU that we have allocated to our environment.
Beautiful.
We're using 75% of the memory. The way that it works is you can see here, it's telling me that my controller is not up to date, but the controller is just a pod that's in each of your clusters and sits there and just reads the metrics of your application. Yeah. It's just a little pod. It's very resource light, and then it just sends back and we give you recommendations on what you can do. And so if I go back over,
it's a little proxy, if you will, that just relays. It's a messenger that sends stuff back to the core Spot platform for analytics.
Right. And so we look at and I've got this chat bubble right here that's given me, but you can see here it's saying I think you should decrease to 0.199 vCPUs and decrease your memory from 6 gigs down to 4 gigs. Yeah. You've got 5 CPUs, so decrease that. And so if there's not capacity in the cluster or there's a better way to manage the cluster, that's what we go in and do. So let's go in and look at our cloud clusters. We're going to click on Kubernetes.
Yeah, that was going to be my thing. So it makes the recommendations, right? Mm-hmm. But is there a Picard button, though, where it just make it so?
Yeah. So we find a lot of our customers, and this is going to tell me no data available because we're running slow right now. There is a button where you can go and say, no, don't go and activate all the changes. Wait, let me help you with that. And then once you get comfortable with it, then you just let it go and do its thing and it becomes automation. One of the biggest barriers to moving from a reactive DevOps mindset to a proactive mindset or proactive DevOps mindset is the fact that you have the automation in place to handle the critical events so that you can focus on your high value tasks. And that's what people miss when they talk about adopting DevOps. So many cloud native companies, you don't see this as much, but you see it with mid cap companies that are just moving into DevOps. They focus so much on the reactivity of their environment. They don't trust the automation. Kubernetes was built so that you could trust the automation to do what it needs to do, because your environment knows what it needs better than you do. And once you get to that point and you get to that proactive DevOps, you start focusing on your product and your application lifecycle in a totally different way.
Yeah.
And so you can see these resizing recommendations here, and you can go in. We have it so it's automated right now, and it scores them from high to medium. So if we come down here and we look at this one, it just says, hey, you need to just you've got one vCPU, your memory's good. Just decrease this down to half a memory slice or half a CPU slice. And so we can go in and we call it, and it's called bin packing. We go in and we can go and look at your pod and say, how much of your pod are you really using? Is there a better way to pack that pod in? Or is there a better way to, I'm going to switch screens here for
it's Tetris, right?
It's Tetris, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. And I'm trying
how many different shaped pods can you put into one node?
Mm-hmm. And when you get to that balance where you're really using,
you're showing your email right now, by the way.
Yep, I'm doing that on purpose because I want to open.
Cool.
I want to open a specific screen that I wanted to have up.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live because I want this chart to really show, and it's not in this presentation. Really, what it does. There it is. This will have it. Hey, it's me.
Hey, it's that guy.
This is what bin packing looks like. Come on. There we go. You ride this curve of the services that you're consuming, right? This is how you go and you stand up instances. I need 14 instances. I'm standing up 14 instances.
Yeah.
But what if we could ride that curve and pack things more efficiently? That's kind of cool.
That is awesome.
And now you look at the colors, we have the excess. These are all spot instances. These are your commitments. And now you've gone from using all of these as on-demand pay-as-you-go instances to, I've got a few of them, but the rest of it is covered under some kind of commitment plan.
Yeah. It might be a set of RIs that you have, a 3-year commit, something like that. Mm-hmm. Production systems that you know you're going to have around for a long time. That creates sort of a foundation. And then you just sort of embellish with spot instances as needed.
Right.
It's beautiful.
And that's it right there. We just take this and we sit at the level where your application sits, and we make it easy for you to come in and automate that. So you can see here, we're using 82% of our CPU, 77. These are really high numbers that you don't usually see because so many people just shift their applications and don't stack them to get the best money or value for the money that you're spending in the cloud. And if you can get this level of utilization, now your cloud economics change and it becomes a whole different ballgame when it comes to your cloud ops portfolio.
Well, infrastructure guys are having panic attacks right now, seeing
right.
80% utilized.
Right, because
but that's
traditionally
the irony is that's what we want in the cloud, though.
Right. That's the thing that makes everything so scary to these guys, because they want to come in and they want to basically control it and say, if I hit 82%, panic.
Right.
Well, you don't want to panic because now you're using it more efficiently and you're running 67 pods, running 170 pods or 1,000 pods, and still getting that high utilization that gives you what you're trying to accomplish.
Yep. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see it all work that way. Okay, so we've covered Eco, we've covered Elastigroups, we've covered Ocean. What's the missing pieces that we still need to go over?
You've got Spot Security that's coming down the pipe. This is new.
Yeah, so I think the rest of them are pretty new.
These are in alpha.
I'm excited about Connect. That's the sort of bringing in the Filament acquisition from a couple years ago or last year. Excited about that one. I'm very excited about anything that's going to make DevOps easier. So any kind of low code, no code platforms and environments. So what if you could take a low-code environment and just bake it directly into the platform like this? I mean, you guys have seen the rise of ChatGPT. Like, people want to do less work, I promise, and still get the same or better results out of it. And that's one of the ways that you can facilitate that. It goes back to the automation bits that you were just talking about as well.
For sure.
Trusting the automation and being able to link all of that together and stitch it together yourself so that maybe you do trust it a little bit more. And it's not just some random application that's coming in and puppeteering your environment.
Ocean CD is another big one. Being able to do canary deployments on virtualized infrastructure and catch problems before they come down the pipe. That's going to be huge. That's going to be a game changer for deploying, because you can come in and you can see how your environment's going to deploy and really get into and tie it into your existing CI/CD workflow, and have this launch environments for you where it can catch the problems before the environment's actually rolled out. That's going to be a game changer when it comes to continuous deployment and getting to that proactive DevOps instead of the reactive.
Yeah. Is this the same kind of thing where you would see like blue-green beta testing or A/B testing and stuff like that, where it'll kind of slowly roll it out to a particular set of users and then eventually it's 100% production?
Yeah, but take that and now put it on Spot infrastructure.
Sold. I'm in.
There you go.
I'm in.
I mean that's the thing right there. Ocean for Spark. Take Ocean and make it for your big data and your data lake workloads.
Yeah.
That's another big one. Right? That's going to be able to go in and take that optimized infrastructure and allow you to do the same thing and realize the same savings on a traditionally data heavy environment that has a lot of compute behind it, and save a ton of money when it comes to a ton of money and a ton of effort when it comes to your big data workloads and extracting and transforming data out of your data lakes.
So if what Shon just said resonates with you, you're likely already using technologies like Python scripting, like Jupyter Notebooks. All of that stuff is completely compatible. So it's almost a seamless transition to go from spinning it up or scripting the spin up of your environments for processing manually or with scripts. Now you can use the power of Spot and Ocean. All of the things that we were just going nuts about with Ocean now applies to any of those Spark workloads as well. Just bring your own Jupyter Notebooks and turn it on. Like, it's that easy, guys. And trust me, we're going to have deeper dive sessions. And I apologize to the product teams that I'm oversimplifying a lot of this stuff. I'm doing it intentionally.
Right. And we want to introduce this in a way that is easy and bite-sized and says, hey, I want to look at this. But at the same time, one of the things that we really want to do is make this a informative demo as we go through the end of it, and really spend an hour going through Ocean and what it takes to configure Ocean and what right sizing looks like and how all the different options affect what you do and how your applications work.
Yeah, this is the what, why. We'll get to the how in a future episode for sure. Subscribe, but make sure that you are watching out for those episodes, because they're coming very soon. It's something I've been putting off unintentionally for a minute until we could get to the point where we had all of this stuff together. We had InstaCluster last week. We going over the Spot portfolio this week, and you're going to see these individual deeper dives, these 201 or 301 sessions really start to ramp up, especially for Spot as we get deeper and deeper into this throughout the year. So,
and this is the goal, right? This is the goal, that when I get to my containers, Spot doesn't need to do anything because you're already optimized. What more can I do? I can go to my boss and I say, hey, now we can go look at our VM infrastructure, and I can start knocking things out piecemeal and really getting to that level of optimization that these organizations that adopt DevOps want to get to. We give the tool to get to where they want to be, because so many companies are like, hell yeah, we're going all in on DevOps, and they get lost in the reactionary aspect of it because they're not ready for it. We give you the tools to automate your way into being proactive DevOps organizations.
So a couple of things here before I jump in. Were there any other products that are part of the portfolio that we really wanted to highlight?
Yeah. So let's look at the portfolio one more time real quick.
Yeah.
And just kind of go over, because there are a couple that have their own names and their own branding.
Yeah.
Cloud Checker is one of them. And as a former Cloud Checker customer before I worked here, Cloud Checker was one of the best tools that I had when it came up to my compliance audits. When it was time to do my ISO, when it was time to do my SOC 2 Type 2, when it was time for me to do my high trust or any of these regulatory things, Cloud Checker was the way to do it. And Cloud Checker is super handy when it sets alerts. It says, hey, you've got all these unused volumes that you should probably do something with, or something has happened in your cloud environment that you need to investigate. Cloud Checker is huge. And you talked about Instacluster and how Instacluster fits in, and Instacluster is going to become more and more of a key player because relational databases and open source relational databases, and frankly, NoSQL is a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to also be one of those big acquisitions that I think is foretelling when it comes to how big of a purchase the Spot portfolio was by NetApp.
Yeah, and if you saw the episode last week, you saw the bits about how Postgres has entered the chat, and there's more to come on that stuff as well. So it's definitely going to ramp up. It's not just Cassandra anymore. There's Kafka in there. Postgres has come aboard or has come along. So a lot of that stuff is going to begin ramping up. I love the way you put it with NoSQL. I think the cloud and a lot of the modern applications have some element of databases underneath, but they've had to get creative about how they do that without Oracle sitting underneath it. How do we run modern applications when we need databases?
Right, and that's the thing is Oracle and Microsoft SQL, they're good at what they do. They're good at running that huge data sets, huge relational data, really quick, really efficiently. But the cloud needs to be faster.
Yeah.
And not everybody needs a relational database. Sometimes you just need a text table that you can go extract the data from. And I think that the NoSQL movement is going to finally, and as an ex-systems guy, I can't wait to see Microsoft SQL killed off in some form or fashion.
Yeah, where's all my access people at?
Right. And so I think that that's really going to be a game changer in cloud ops too, is going to that NoSQL as people adopt it.
Yeah. Well, I think to close things out here at the end, let's have some fun. So I will give you a little bit of inside baseball on when we first started looking at it. There is a story that a couple of our SVPs were walking around a trade show floor, right? Mm-hmm. And they had this practice where they would meet at the front door and they would go in the opposite directions and they would do a lap and they'd come back around and talk about what they saw, what they're excited about. I would eventually call this going shopping. Mm-hmm. Right? That's it. So I do some of this now as well, where I'll just go walk a floor with the mindset of, that would be an interesting integration, right? So this happened, and the funny thing, they did a lap, they came back around, and they both looked at each other and went, Spot. Mm-hmm. Right? This was probably 2019, if I had to guess, pre-pandemic. And at the end of the day, somebody just said they do databases in front page. Richard, stop it. Oh, you just completely threw me off, and I'm mad I looked at that now. Anyway, they both came around the lap and both said Spot. And when we came back in and started doing some due diligence, we come to find out, we went and asked our IT department about it because we had an entire hybrid cloud lab that we had spun up to build out our cloud storage offerings dating all the way back to 2016, right? They were like, yeah, we use it already. What? Yeah, we're a customer. You what? Come to find out, our hybrid cloud labs bill was in excess of multiple six figures a month because we were spending so much on getting all of these services stood up, right? Mm-hmm. And that is with our good old boy discount back channel from the the relationships that we built. So turns out the minute they turned Spot on, we saved 83%. 83%. It's like that.
Right.
And you're talking about fundamentally changing the way that you budget and do things because of something that massive. So I say that just to hammer the point home that even though we were excited, yes, we're NetApp, yes, we're a vendor, yes, we're excited about cloud and all of that stuff, but real fundamental change on how we did things, how it affected our books, how it affected our numbers, our figures, everything. How we approached deploying labs completely changed. And I can't wait to have like Mecca and some of the other people that were involved in that at the beginning to tell even more of the story that I don't even know. Mm-hmm. There's things that are, there's so much detail that we could go into. The story with Spot is that, yes, we found out accidentally, stumbled over our heels into the fact that we were using it already. We were a big customer.
And that's really where the cloud is going, right? Even a company like NetApp couldn't save enough money without these automation tools.
Yeah.
Right. And you look at the cloud the way that IT spending has changed over the last 10 years and gone from a capital expense to a just line item that you put on a credit card changes the game.
Yeah.
In not only how you acquire IT services and the value that you get out of them, but you have to make yourself sticky. And I think that Spot by NetApp has figured out the way to make cloud ops sticky and give everything in that one pane of glass that you're able to really get 83% savings. You go to your boss and say, hey, I shaved 83% off of our compute bill. You're going to get a raise, and the other thing we find is people who save that much money go and explore other cloud services and ways to generate more revenue for their platform.
Yeah.
Right. So when you think about saving 83%, you think that the cloud, the scalers would be like, no, we don't want that. You're cutting into our profits. No, because you take that 83% and you are spending it on different ways to do storage, on how to transform your code to NoSQL, how to move to a serverless, right? And so all those savings turn into more spend in some way for the scalers as well.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing, because we're in a period where we see all this tech changing so rapidly. And to be on the front lines of it and help people actually do it and get to that dream of being the proactive DevOps platform-based engineering solution that every cloud native company wants to be, it's really cool to be sitting from this vantage point in the cockpit and helping them drive that saving and automation.
Yeah, I imagine so. That's got to be a cool place to be. From my perspective, it's not. I'm more of a jack of all trades, master of none in a way. I get to see I get to see everything that's going on from that. So there's part of me that wants to be down in there in the trenches, but that would preclude me from like doing things with ONTAP or building Data Center Dude's data center or making videos for you guys on YouTube and stuff. So I love the fact that we've got this product, this portfolio, right? This platform now. And the way that we're bringing it to market, actually it was announced at Insight last fall, the way that we're bringing it all to market as side by side as a peer of Blue XP under one sort of common layer. That's really what I want everybody to take home is like we're not over the finish line yet. And the pendulum of the market is still swinging very aggressively. There's people saying everybody should do everything in the cloud. And then there's people saying, there's articles that are coming out saying I save $400 million by not using the cloud. Like that pendulum, don't take any one thing as gospel. There's going to be a magic middle ground somewhere that's going to be unique and subjective to every individual customer based on their staff and the skills of those staff, their openness to risk. All of those things matter. All of those things come into it. What Spot does is shore up some of those gaps for you. And I feel like it gives you predictable cost savings as well. The savings is the obvious part, but it's predictable. It's pretty static if things stay the way that, unless you make crazy major changes. But the predictability of it gives you a sleep well at night kind of feeling. If you're in IT leadership, run a DevOps shop, if you're a CIO, a CFO for that matter, like you need that predictability. You need to be able to look forward to that stuff. And
having tools like Ocean CD that are built to protect that stability and that predictability that you mentioned is where that game changes, because then you can invest in the tools that are giving you the best money. Yeah, there's 600 to pick from, but if I only need 5, I'm only going to use 5.
Yeah.
So let's show you how we can do that and help everybody sleep at night and have that better work-life balance.
Yeah. And you asked me why I loved Ocean so much. I mean, we could get into the stuff with Trident and how you could use persistent volumes with NetApp snapshots to do cloning. Like that's such a deep rabbit hole to go down. But guys, the last thing I want to leave you with here is you can turn on the analyzer for free. And Shon, I'll let you go into more on that to close us out here, because that's the one thing I really want people to understand is that you can turn this on just for the informational purposes, link it to your accounts, and just let it watch your stuff and give you some feedback and some analytics and some numbers so that you can get an idea. Maybe you won't save anything. Maybe you're the most efficient IT shop and developer in the world.
Why not find out?
Let's find out. And not to do it as a way to expose you or your department, but as a way to see what the possibilities would be. Because everybody's scared of waking up one morning and getting that crazy bill in their inbox from the cloud provider because they forgot to turn something off. Like, let's see where you're spending your money, where you could be more efficient, all that. And here's a tool that'll do that for you for free without any commitment to have to roll into anything else. You pulling something else back up here? Okay.
Yep. I'm going to show him how when you create your Spot account for the first time, you go in and you type in your name or whatever your account, let's call it Dev Tooling. Create account. Nope, it's not going to let me do that. But basically you hit that and it takes you to a window for your cloud provider, and you hit go and we launch a stack, and you start getting this information back to you within an hour. And then and you can connect your financial aspect of it and start reading real-time data from your current usage reports, your CURs. It takes 15 minutes to get data flowing in. And like Nick said, it's free you don't spend money until you save money, right? And even then,
say that again.
You don't spend money until you save money. And you still get 14 days free. So if you try it out for 14 days, you can start saving money, cut a little bit off your bill, and you still have 14 days. So
yes, it only takes 15 minutes. Yes, you'll get data back within an hour. But I would recommend letting this run for at least 30, if not like 60 or 90 days.
Yep.
Because that will give you like a quarter's worth of data to analyze your environment, your day-to-day patterns. It'll establish some trends. And then if you really wanted to start putting stuff into practice from there, there's going to be, the ML model is going to be built for your utilization to be able to predict what kind of Spot instances you're going to need on a day-to-day basis. So, but all
how cool would it be? And how cool would that be to know weeks in advance, right? Like, you know what your application is going to need. Holy crap, I overbuilt my infrastructure. I can dial it back. Here's how. And I can save money.
Yeah. I don't overbuild infrastructure. Me, no.
He says with 242 racks behind him.
So I'm as guilty of that as anybody. I'm the.
It's how we were trained, Nick. It's how we came up into this industry.
If you cross 50% thresholds, I have a panic attack.
Right.
I start ordering new shit. Right. Stuff.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. That's how we were brought up. And when we moved to the cloud, it was server for server.
Yeah.
But now we can get into microservices and we can break that out and get utilization. It's a no-brainer from just exploring the data. At the end of the day, we all need to be data-centric. Let's explore the data and then do what's best for you.
Yeah. Let it be. We always like to throw the phrase data-driven around at NetApp. Be data-driven. Don't just kind of, finger in the wind guess how big of an EC2 instance size you need. Run this for 30 days, 90 days. Get a quarter's worth of information and analytics that'll tell you exactly what size and exactly how many instances you're going to need. Exactly how big you need to scale your Kubernetes cluster and the number of nodes and what kind and mix of nodes that those need to be based on the workloads that you're actually running in EKS or your DIY case cluster. So don't guess. This removes the need to guess anymore. And this removes the need to have 20 years of experience working on something that's only been around for 5 or 6 years.
All right.
Right? I say that jokingly to all the recruiters out there. The last thing I think I'm most excited to go over, I'm obsessed with this low-code world that we're moving into. I'm really excited to have the former Filament team come on and talk about the forthcoming Spot Connect that's been announced now. And really excited to have the Spot Security team go over what that stuff's all about. But
auto healing APIs, sign me up.
I'm in.
API changed. I don't have to go change my code. It recognizes it changed. Yeah, sign me up.
It's real, guys. It's real. Shon, been a pleasure chatting with you, man. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Anytime.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing what we can, what comes next.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking more in the future. But thanks for the chat on DevRel too at the beginning.
Sure.
Interesting perspectives on all of that stuff and how you came up. And
for sure.
We'll see you next time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Take care, bud. All right, guys, there we go. Shon Harris, thank you again for joining us, being a part of the show here on NetApp On Air. Make sure you subscribe here to the channel and have your notifications turned on. We are here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, covering a new topic, taking you down a new rabbit hole for all of the pieces and products and parts that we have going on here at NetApp. But my name is Nick Howell. Come join the Discord. Follow us everywhere you can. You guys know how to do the social media stuff. It's 2023. Follow us where all the places you want to follow us. But most importantly, come join us in Discord, and we'll see you over there. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next Wednesday. Until then, take care.